No one heard a scream. No one saw anyone following her. She just stepped out of her apartment, walked down the stairs, and then, as if she vanished into thin air, her name was Aisha Brown. On the night of June 12, 2018, at exactly 9:17 p.m., a security camera in the apartment building captured the last verifiable moment Aisha, wearing a light jacket, carrying a backpack, keys in hand, was seen walking down from the 5th floor. There was nothing unusual about her steps. She wasn't rushing. She didn't seem alert or afraid, and that was the last time anyone ever saw Aisha. Her phone went dead just 2 minutes later. No outgoing texts, no emergency calls. Her backpack was later found on the ground floor, right next to a bench near the exit. Inside were her wallet, ID, and keys. Everything except Aisha. This wasn't a voluntary disappearance. It didn't look like an accident either. And the strangest part, no one, not even her roommate or family, could clearly remember the last time they truly saw her. Aisha Brown was born and raised in Decatur, Georgia, just about a 20-minute drive from downtown Atlanta. She was the eldest daughter in a hardworking, close-knit African-American family. Her mother, Denise, worked night shifts as a nurse at a local senior care facility. Her father, Terrence, had been a city bus driver until a work-related injury in 2010 forced him into early retirement. The Browns were never wealthy, but in their neighborhood, they were known as kind, self-reliant, and deeply united. Aisha carried the weight of being the oldest child with grace from a young age. She was used to helping raise her siblings, cooking meals, even changing light bulbs and fixing leaky faucets. Neighbors often joked, that girl, she could build a whole house if she had to. But Aisha wasn't just handy, she was driven. She excelled in math and physics, earning a full scholarship to study civil engineering at Georgia State University. After graduating, she became one of the few black women working in civil construction. By 26, she was a site supervisor on a major city-funded infrastructure renewal project. It was a high-pressure job managing field crews, mostly men, often out on site, constantly needing to prove herself. But Aisha never complained. In one of her old Instagram posts, she wrote, "As a black woman in construction, just showing up every day feels like a victory." She shared an apartment in South Atlanta with her college friend Kayla, now an accountant. The place was small, older, but secure. They split the chores, cooked together on weekends, and had a tradition of watching Scandal every Thursday night, according to Kayla. Aisha was obsessively tidy, always folding clothes right after laundry, jotting everything down in notebooks, and planning her month to the hour. She had goals. She always knew what she wanted, and what it took to get there. She was blunt, independent, but always listened. Lately, Aisha had seemed quieter, often up late working on her laptop, and less talkative about the everyday things. But Kayla figured it was just job stress. They had just planned a beach trip for July. Aisha had already drafted the itinerary. At the time, Aisha wasn't seeing anyone. She had dated a few times through apps, but nothing lasted. She once told her younger brother, Jordan, "I'm not getting married just to fill a void. I want someone who really sees me, not someone just trying to be seen." When asked about his sister, Jordan choked up. She always acted like she didn't need anyone, but she cared about people more than herself, in her community. Aisha wasn't flashy or loud, but everyone who met her remembered her. Gladys, an elderly widow who lived downstairs, once said, "That girl always asked if I needed anything from the store, every Saturday morning." Just hearing her footsteps down the stairs made me feel like the world was still spinning right. Aisha had a routine light exercise every morning, sometimes walking the complex or jogging on the trail by the park. She wasn't overly social, but always polite, and had a soft spot for kids. Kayla's 5-year-old daughter, Nia, often played in Aisha's room and called her Miss Engineer, despite her demanding job. Aisha made time to visit her parents on weekends or take Jordan out for a treat if he did well in school. Their favorite spot was an old diner near the basketball courts where they grew up. Jordan recalled she was always by the book, but around me. She'd laugh, shed joke like she could finally exhale. The two were opposites, yet inseparable. Aisha was the planner. Jordan lived in the moment. She liked quiet and books. He was into hip-hop and street art. But in tough times, like when their dad had surgery or their mom struggled with stress, Aisha was the rock holding everyone together. Few people knew that Aisha once ran a personal blog called Hard Hat, Soft Heart. She used it to write about her projects, the challenges of her field, and what it meant to be a woman in engineering. It never got much traffic, but her writing was honest, thoughtful, and full of pride. In an April post, she wrote, "Sometimes I wonder if I chose the wrong field, but then I look at the project map and I remember what I'm building. It's not just streets, it's a way of life." That's the clearest picture we have of Aisha before she disappeared, a principled young woman, devoted to her family, trusted by her community, and quietly carving her place in a tough industry. There were no signs she was planning to leave. No one close to her noticed anything alarming. No one except for one detail Kayla would later reveal to police, which would change everything. About a week before Aisha vanished, Kayla started noticing small changes. Not big red flags, just subtle shifts you might miss if you didn't live with someone. Aisha stayed up later than usual, often glued to her laptop, which she never let anyone touch. She stopped her morning runs, a habit she'd kept for 3 years, and she began taking mysterious evening calls, stepping out onto the balcony for 10 or 15 minutes at a time when Kayla asked. Aisha brushed it off. Just work stuff. Nothing big. Her tone was calm, not defensive, but she no longer seemed as open as before. One night, Kayla saw Aisha delete a message right after reading it. For a split second, her face showed something surprise, maybe confusion, but just as quickly, she slipped back into her usual calm. As June 12th drew closer, Kayla felt like she was living with a different version of Aisha, still the same in routine, folding towels the same way, paying bills on time, roasting chicken on Sunday, but sometimes her gaze seemed distant, distracted. The night before she vanished, Kayla overheard Aisha on the phone. The words weren't clear, but her voice sounded tense more than usual. When Kayla checked in, Aisha smiled and said, "Yeah, I'll be back early tomorrow. Just need a good night's sleep." That night, Aisha packed her red backpack, the one she used for job site documents, and placed it neatly by the door. She didn't say where she was going. She didn't ask Kayla to call or watch the apartment. Everything felt like she planned to return shortly, while tidying up. Kayla saw Aisha slip a folded piece of paper into her jacket pocket, something no one has ever identified. Days later, after Aisha was officially reported missing, Kayla told police something she had never shared, not even with Aisha. A week earlier, she'd caught a glimpse of a notification on Aisha's phone while it vibrated. The message was just one sentence: "I need to see you Tuesday night alone." The sender's name wasn't saved. And that Tuesday was the night Aisha disappeared. Tuesday night. June 12th, 2018. It was a light rain kind of evening in Atlanta. The temperature had dropped more than usual, the air damp and still. Kayla remembers that night. Clearly she had a financial report due for work, and barely left her desk from dinner until nearly 10 p.m. Aisha got home around 8, later than usual after a long day on site. She looked tired, but not upset. They exchanged a few words, mostly about leftovers in the fridge and whose turn it was to do laundry. Aisha said, "I need to step out for a bit. I'll be back in like 30 minutes. Kayla didn't think much of it. She just noticed Aisha grabbing her usual backpack, nothing out of the ordinary, and slipping on a light jacket. Nothing about that moment suggested it would be the last time she'd ever see her friend. At 9:17 p.m., a security camera in the apartment lobby recorded Aisha stepping off the elevator. She was alone. No one following, no one waiting. She didn't glance at the camera, didn't stop, showed no signs of distress. The building's front door opened, and Aisha walked out of frame. That footage is what initially led police to believe Aisha left voluntarily, but the questions began just minutes later because exactly 3 minutes after that footage, her phone powered off. Not from a dead battery cell, data showed she had about 15% charge left, and not due to a malfunction, there were no error logs. The phone was shut down, either intentionally or by force. By 10:30, Kayla started to worry. Aisha never stayed out this long without checking in. She called twice, both went straight to voicemail, near midnight. Kayla contacted Jordan, Aisha's younger brother, and together, They decided to call the police at 12:10 a.m. The initial response was cautious, maybe too cautious. She's an adult. No indication of harm. Could just be off somewhere or wanting space. A night duty officer said. But Kayla knew this wasn't like Aisha. She wouldn't just disappear without telling anyone. And the next morning, that worry turned into something much deeper when officers returned to search the building. They found Aisha's red backpack sitting on a bench near the main exit, untouched, no signs of struggle. Inside were her wallet, ID, lip balm, a small notebook, and her phone, powered off. But one thing was missing, the small folded piece of paper Kayla had seen Aisha tuck into her jacket the night before. It was never found. This single detail escalated the case from voluntary adult departure to suspicious disappearance. But because Aisha was a black woman, and there were no signs of violence, her case didn't receive the urgency others might have. Her family started printing flyers, organized search efforts, and created a Facebook group called Find Aisha Now. But the media stayed silent, as if Aisha had never existed. 2 days after her disappearance, the Brown family officially filed a missing persons report with the Atlanta Police Department, pleading for an emergency investigation. Her mother, Denise, nearly collapsed from grief. She told a local reporter, "Aisha is responsible. If she says she's coming home, she's coming home. She doesn't go quiet for more than a day without texting me." Still, the police hesitated. They opened a file but didn't deploy a special unit or organize a ground search. The reason: no clear evidence of criminal activity. This infuriated Aisha's family and community, especially when they compared it to missing white women cases nearby that made the news within hours. So Kayla and Jordan took matters into their own hands. They printed hundreds of flyers, posted them around grocery stores, bus stops, schools, and churches. They went door to door, talked to every neighbor, questioned building staff. One front desk worker vaguely remembered Aisha walking through that night, but couldn't confirm whether she exited through the main door or a side exit. Then came a disturbing clue. The back gate camera, the one by the parking lot, had been broken for a week. No footage, no answers. A security guard mentioned uncertainly that he might have seen a man standing near a black Ford Focus around 9:30 p.m., but nothing more. The family tried accessing Aisha's social media and email accounts. Most hadn't been touched since the day she vanished, except one at 2:14 a.m., hours after she went missing. Someone logged into Aisha's personal email from an unknown IP address, not from her phone, not her laptop. That IP traced back to a tiny internet cafe in West End, a neighborhood Aisha had no known connection to. When police checked it out, the cafe had no cameras. No staff remembered any specific customers that night. The question echoed, who logged in and why around the same time? An anonymous message was sent to the Find Aisha Now Facebook page. It read, "She wasn't kidnapped. She's paying for something she shouldn't have been involved in." There was no name, no traceable IP. But it shook Aisha's family and friends to the core, because in their eyes, Aisha was principled, focused, never involved in anything shady. So what exactly had she gotten into? Was it her job, a relationship, or a secret no one ever knew? 3 days after her disappearance, a group of volunteers, friends, co-workers, and members of Atlanta's black community organized a small search near the woods by Parkerson Park. The area is less than 2 miles from Aisha's home and usually empty at night. One volunteer said they had seen a black Ford Focus parked near the park's edge on the night Aisha vanished. Police neither confirmed nor blocked the search. But after 4 hours combing the area, they found nothing, just a damp washcloth and a discarded bottle cap, neither usable for forensics. Frustration deepened. The media stayed silent. No news reports, no urgent alerts. Cases like Aisha's are often brushed aside, maybe shall come back or not enough evidence. The silence sparked outrage on Black Twitter. Users began sharing Aisha's story using the hashtags #Chachichaos say her name and Where is Aisha. One viral tweet read, "If Aisha were white." This would have been on CNN by day one. It was shared over 20,000 times in 48 hours. Then Kayla remembered something: a name. One night, when Aisha was on a tense phone call, Kayla overheard her say Malik. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now that name haunted her. Who was Malik? Why the secrecy? She and Jordan began searching Facebook and LinkedIn for anyone named Malik who might be worked or studied with Aisha. One result stood out: Malik Jennings, a former engineering classmate who had interned on the same construction project with Aisha in 2016. His online presence was minimal, barely updated since 2019. But one photo chilled Kayla to the bone. Malik's profile picture showed him at a construction site. In the blurry background was a worn-out street sign. When Kayla zoomed in, she could read it: Perkerson Trail Access. They printed the image and rushed it to police. But again, delays. There's no evidence Malik was involved. Aisha never filed any complaints or mentioned him in official reports. The investigator replied, the family was crushed, but they knew if they didn't act, this story would be buried. Then, just as hope began to fade, something unexpected happened. A homeless woman who lived near an abandoned building 3 blocks from where Aisha vanished came forward with a chilling statement that made the entire investigation grind to a halt. She said, "I saw a girl who looked like her that night. She was running, and someone was chasing her." The woman's name was Ms. Loretta. She was in her 60s and had been living around an abandoned property near the path that led to Perkerson Trail when police interviewed her. She couldn't recall the exact date, but she clearly remembered the rain-light drizzle and how she'd been sheltering beneath the awning of a rundown warehouse. "I heard footsteps, a woman's footsteps. For sure, she was running, wearing a dark coat. Something red on her back looked like a backpack. She was running like the devil was chasing her," she said, seconds later. Loretta heard a second set of footsteps, heavier, faster, determined. She didn't dare look. The sounds lasted less than a minute. She didn't see anyone get caught, didn't hear screaming, only the sound of panic. And then silence, when shown a photo of Aisha. Loretta said, "I can't be 100% sure, but it looked a lot like her." This testimony prompted lead investigator Lieutenant Marks to re-examine the full timeline and recheck surveillance from nearby areas. Most traffic and side-street cameras weren't working or didn't cover the right angles, but one security cam at a car wash, about a mile from the scene, captured a black Ford Focus at exactly 9:24 p.m., just 7 minutes after Aisha was seen leaving her building. The car had no headlights on, and the rear license plate was covered with a black plastic bag. The driver couldn't be identified, but the vehicle matched the description given earlier by a security guard the same type, seen parked near the building's side exit that night. Lieutenant Marks ordered a full review of everyone Aisha had been in contact with over the last 3 months, combing through work emails, site logs, and recent phone calls. One name came up again: Malik Jennings. Police discovered Malik had once been reported for harassment by an ex-girlfriend in 2015. The case never led to charges, but the report was on record when they visited his last known address. The apartment was empty. Neighbors said he'd moved out over a year ago, though he occasionally returned to pick up mail. His phone was disconnected. His Facebook had gone quiet, but then came a chilling tip from one of Aisha's former co-workers. She once confided that Malik makes me feel unsafe, though she hadn't filed a report, saying nothing's actually happened yet. As police struggled to piece together his profile, Aisha's family and community pushed their own investigation forward. They mapped her usual routes, re-interviewed former co-workers, especially men she supervised on site. One worker, Rico, remembered Malik showing up at a job site unexpectedly, not scheduled. No work duties, just to talk to Aisha. It lasted around 15 minutes that day, Rico recalled. Aisha looked visibly shaken. She left the field office early. No one knew what was said, but Rico remembered Malik saying as he walked off, "I just want an explanation, that's all," matching Rico's account with Aisha's phone logs. Investigators noted something odd. On that same day, June 1st, Aisha received a 14-minute call from an unlisted number. That was also the first time she failed to submit her daily site report, something she'd never skipped before. Police obtained a warrant and confirmed the number once belonged to Malik Jennings, though it had since been deactivated. Then came another lead, a WhatsApp conversation recovered from Aisha's phone backup. It was between Aisha and a contact not saved under a name. The exchange, from late May into early June, was vague but tense. One message read, I've kept quiet for 2 years. Don't make me speak. Aisha replied, I don't owe you anything. That conversation raised alarming questions. What had happened between them? Was there a past incident, a professional conflict, a relationship gone wrong? Kayla admitted she never heard Aisha mention Malik, not once until recently. Jordan, too. Which meant Aisha had kept a part of her past hidden from those closest to her. And that hidden piece became the center of every theory. Police began leaning toward the possibility that Aisha had been followed or confronted by Malik, but they still lacked concrete evidence of threats or coercion online. People turned back to Ms. Loretta's testimony. A viral tweet claimed she had a history of hallucinations, sparking debate. Can we really trust this witness, or is it all a distraction from the real suspect? The community was divided. Some believed the investigation was being deliberately misled. Others argued that any lead, no matter how small, deserved attention. While the debate raged, a new discovery was made from a nearby surveillance cam that had gone overlooked a convenience store camera at the end of the block at 9:28 p.m. on the night Aisha disappeared. The footage showed a female figure, possibly Aisha, in a long coat, red backpack, running across a corner of the screen. Behind her, out of frame, a light briefly flashed, possibly car headlights. The image was blurry, but the timing matched. It gave new weight to Loretta's story. Someone ran, and someone followed. Police tried enhancing the video and sent it for forensic analysis. The footage was poor, grainy, streetlights distorting the image, but when they reviewed frames just before and after, 1 second-long clip revealed a black Ford Focus speeding through. The rear window had a visible crack, the same detail Rico remembered from Malik's car back at the site. The plate was unreadable, but the timing, the location, and the car's features all pointed in one direction. It was enough for Latiu Marks to act. Malik Jennings was now officially a person of interest. The problem: Malik had vanished. His phone was off, social media silent, bank activity frozen for over 2 weeks. Police visited his mother's home in suburban Riverdale. She hadn't seen him since early June. He didn't say where he was going. Just texted me once I need to deal with something from the past. I thought he owed someone money. When asked about Aisha, she just shook her head. I know he worked with a black girl once. I didn't think it was anything serious. He never talked about her. Meanwhile, Kayla started digging into the project where Aisha and Malik had worked together. On Aisha's old laptop, now returned by police, she found a hidden, password-protected folder. She tried basic passwords: birthdays, Jordan's name, her college. Nothing worked. Then she tried Hard Hat 2220, the name of Aisha's blog, plus the year she launched it. It opened. Inside were diary-style notes, labeled Things to Remember. One entry from May 22nd read, Malik showed up today. Asked about the folder. I said I didn't have it. He didn't believe me. Thinks I'm hiding something. I'm scared, but there's nothing to tell. No one would believe me anyway. The last line was short, almost like a whisper. If anything happens, don't let them think I left on purpose. That sentence hit like a punch to the gut. Aisha had felt something coming. She had tried to warn someone, and it confirmed what her family had feared. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was a chain of events rooted in something old, hidden, and dangerously unresolved. And then, just as the tension peaked, Jordan received a second anonymous message, this time sent directly to his Instagram. You don't know who's really behind this. Stop or you'll end up like her. And that was the moment everyone, police, family, and the wider community had to ask, was Malik just the surface, or was someone else unseen? In the shadows, pulling the strings all along, when the second anonymous message was sent to Jordan, there was no doubt left. Someone was watching every move Aisha's family made. The chilling words, stop or you'll end up like her, turned their home into a place of silence and dread. Jordan immediately took a screenshot and forwarded it to police, but the IP address, once again, was cloaked under a string of foreign VPNs, making it virtually impossible to trace in real time. Even Lieutenant Marks, once cautious and skeptical, now acknowledged. This is no longer just a personal dispute. We're dealing with something more organized. He ordered the investigation to expand, now considering the possibility that Malik wasn't acting alone, that someone might be helping him stay hidden, or worse, protecting him. Around the same time, Kayla found an unsent email in Aisha's Outlook drafts. It was titled Documentation Internal Complaint, dated May, with no recipient. Inside was a detailed allegation regarding irregularities in a city construction project, specifically a shipment of building materials that was both delayed and falsely reported as on time. "I'm not sure who signed off on the falsified report," Aisha wrote, "but Malik was in charge of overseeing that shipment. I've requested verification several times, but the file was removed from the system on April 17th. I suspect a cover-up, if that email had been sent. It might have sparked a full-blown investigation into internal corruption, but Aisha had stopped short, maybe out of fear, maybe because someone warned her not to." This revelation shifted everything. Malik wasn't just a jilted ex or a stalker. He may have been hiding something far more serious. And Aisha, knowingly or not, may have held the key evidence. The key. Investigators re-examined the project where Aisha and Malik worked, in the internal audit. They found a troubling coincidence. The final approval signature for that questionable shipment belonged to Malik's cousin, a materials supervisor within the same company. Suddenly, this wasn't just a missing persons case. Aisha might have been targeted not over love, but over a secret. She had become a problem for people with something to lose. And Malik. He wasn't acting alone. He was part of a larger network, one with access, influence, and a willingness to send threats directly to the victim's family. A week after the email discovery, a high-level emergency meeting was called at the Atlanta Police Department. Attendees included the investigative team, a legal representative from Aisha's family, and a liaison from the Atlanta City Council. The objective: determine if her disappearance was linked to misconduct within a publicly funded infrastructure project. Initial data suggested collusion between at least 3 individuals: Malik, his cousin in supply management, and an accountant responsible for disbursements. Internal emails showed Malik had been warned before for failing to submit proper receipts, but no disciplinary action had ever been taken. One investigator said bluntly, Malik might be just been the executor, not the mastermind. Meanwhile, Kayla kept digging. In one of Aisha's notebooks labeled Project 88, she found a cryptic handwritten note Casey knows, but doesn't want to be involved. It took days, but Jordan realized who Casey might be: Kenneth Cole, a former project supervisor who had left the job after it ended, known for being firm but fair. Kenneth had worked closely with Aisha for months. Police arranged a discreet meeting with him at a small cafe on the city's west side. He arrived nervous, eyes darting. When asked about Project 88 and Aisha, he paused, then sighed. She was a damn good engineer. Too good. Sometimes, dangerous. I don't mean she did anything wrong. I mean she asked questions no one else dared to. Kenneth confirmed that the shipment had been falsified. He had considered speaking up, but was told by upper management to let it go and move on. When Aisha asked about the missing documentation, he warned her gently, "You're better off not digging deeper," but she didn't stop. Kenneth recalled a late May conversation. Aisha had come to him after hours and asked, point blank, "If I speak up, will anyone back me?" He had replied, with visible regret, "You're right. But being right doesn't win against people with power. You need to protect yourself first." When he heard she'd gone missing, Kenneth said he knew what had happened. It wasn't over some relationship. She disappeared because she knew something someone was desperate to keep buried. His words weren't hard evidence, but they connected the final dots. Aisha Brown had stumbled onto financial fraud within a city contract. She tried to speak out, and she became the target of those who stood to lose everything. Malik, now, was no longer the main suspect, possibly not even the villain, just a pawn, a messenger, maybe even a fall guy. The real danger was still out there, hiding behind authority, and behind law. News of internal misconduct tied to the case began leaking to local press. One outlet published a headline, "Missing engineer Aisha Brown may have uncovered city contract corruption," though not officially confirmed. The report caught fire, especially among supporters of the Find Aisha Now campaign. The hashtag #Xiaoxiao, Justice for Aisha, exploded across platforms. Accompanied by sharp public outrage, Why does a black woman have to go missing and uncover fraud before anyone listens? Does justice only come when money is on the line? Meanwhile, police expanded the investigation, now focusing on identifying every link in the alleged corruption network. But as they went deeper, things became more tangled. An accounting staffer who'd worked closely with Malik abruptly quit, left an empty desk, a wiped laptop. A senior procurement manager who had signed off on material invoices filed for extended medical leave. Neither responded to police inquiries. Both had lawyered up. Clearly, people were retreating fast. Then came a stunning development. Malik Jennings was arrested, but not for Aisha's disappearance, for using forged documents to rent a car under a false name in another state. He was caught in Charlotte, North Carolina, hiding in a roadside motel under an alias. At first, Malik refused to say anything about Aisha, but after 3 hours of silence in the interrogation room, he broke it with a single sentence: "I didn't hurt her, but I know who did." He didn't give names, no locations. Just this: "If I tell everything, I won't live out the month." He requested protective custody, a defense lawyer, and immunity in exchange for testimony before that could proceed. Something else shook everyone involved. Aisha's mother, Denise, received a package, no return address. Inside was a small USB drive and a note. She knew more than she was supposed to when the family opened the drive. It contained a 38-second video, grainy, but unmistakable. It showed a construction site meeting room. 3 people. One of them was Aisha, voices raised. A man shouting, "You think being an engineer gives you the right to expose people?" And Aisha, calm but firm, "I'm just doing my job. I won't be quiet." The video ended with the sound of a door slamming, and one last word screamed into the silence. Damn it. 38 seconds. That was all it took to confirm what everyone feared. Aisha Brown had been threatened. Aisha Brown tried to speak up, and someone, maybe more than one, had done everything they could to silence her. Permanently. After the 38-second video was made public during a press conference held by Aisha Brown's family, the reaction was explosive. Those who once speculated she may have run away or been caught up in a romantic entanglement were now forced to face a grim, undeniable truth: Aisha had been threatened. She had stood her ground against something or someone far bigger than her. Yet instead of moving the case closer to justice, the footage sent the investigation spiraling into chaos. Theories clashed, contradictions surfaced. First came Malik's response. He claimed he was not the man in the video, according to him. The aggressive voice belonged to a senior executive from the company, a man who transferred to another corporation in a different state in 2019. But when police contacted the executive, he denied everything, denied working directly with Aisha, denied ever being in that meeting room, denied even knowing who Aisha was. Then, technical investigators noticed something even more troubling. The video had no metadata, no date, no timestamp, meaning it could have been altered or even staged. A disturbing theory began to take root. What if the video wasn't meant to help Aisha, but to mislead, to direct public attention toward a specific suspect, while the real truth hid elsewhere? Even Aisha's family began to waver. Jordan, her brother, once the most vocal advocate for justice, suddenly withdrew. He deleted all his advocacy posts on Instagram. In a short interview, he said, "I need time to understand what's really going on," when asked who he believed was behind his sister's disappearance. His answer was chillingly vague: "I thought I knew. Now I'm not so sure." Doubt seeped into every space the case had touched. Online communities began to fracture. One camp still believed Malik was central to the case. Others now suspected the entire investigation had been manipulated by the company, or even the police. "Why were so many cameras not working that night?" one post asked. "Why hasn't anyone been formally arrested?" Yet, questions aimed not just at suspects, but at the very system that had promised to fight for Aisha. Then came a revelation from someone no one expected: Kayla. In a confidential conversation with an independent journalist, the same one who first broke Aisha's story, Kayla admitted she had hidden a critical piece of information. On the night Aisha disappeared, at exactly 9:12 p.m., 5 minutes before she was caught on the apartment elevator camera, Aisha called her. It was a 37-second call. Kayla had kept it secret until now. According to Kayla, Aisha's voice was rushed, shaking. "If you see Malik, don't trust him. He's not alone." Then the call dropped. At the time, Kayla brushed it off as panic. She never imagined it would matter this much. And fearing she'd be dragged too deep, she withheld the information from police. Public outrage erupted. Kayla was blasted for withholding crucial evidence, for betraying a missing friend. Others defended her, saying she might have been scared or mentally overwhelmed. Still, her silence cast a long, confusing shadow over everything. What other truths had been hidden? How much of what people thought they knew was really a carefully constructed illusion? When police reanalyzed call logs and GPS data, a new inconsistency emerged. Aisha's phone, long believed to have powered off at 9:20 p.m., had actually pinged intermittently until 9:48. The last signal came from a location over 5 miles from her apartment near an abandoned lot beside an old highway. The area had never been searched. At that location stood a deserted warehouse, one that had been used during Aisha's construction project to store materials. When a search team reached the warehouse, they discovered something unsettling: a single women's sneaker, silver gray, dusty but relatively new, wedged behind a rusted shelf. It matched a pair Aisha had posted on Instagram just days before her disappearance. "If this shoe is here," someone whispered, "then so was she." But there was no DNA, no blood, no signs of struggle, just a shoe, lying there like a quiet monument to something unnamed. The find reignited online debate. Some saw it as proof Aisha had been taken to or held in that warehouse. Others saw a setup if someone wanted to hide evidence. One thread read, "They wouldn't leave a clean shoe lying around unless they wanted it found." Police tested for DNA, prints, fibers, nothing. No biological evidence, no trace that Aisha had ever physically been in the warehouse except for the shoe. The leading theory: it had been planted, a symbolic signal, maybe to tell the family the story wasn't over. Or worse, a psychological game. Jordan resurfaced online with a single, chilling post: "Someone's playing cat and mouse." But none of us are the mouse. Even Lieutenant Marks, once detached and rational, began to crack. In a closed-door briefing, he admitted, "I don't know what we're chasing anymore." The truth, or a carefully staged illusion. Then, another twist. A tech officer noticed an irregularity in city traffic camera data from the night Aisha vanished. A city-owned vehicle had passed near her apartment at 9:25 p.m., but it wasn't scheduled for patrol. The car belonged to a municipal employee, Devonte Harris, who had worked on the same construction project as Aisha when summoned. Harris was tense but cooperative. He claimed he was just passing through on his way home from another district, but GPS data said otherwise. His vehicle stopped for exactly 3 minutes near the warehouse. At the same time, Aisha's phone emitted its final signal. When asked why, Harris stammered, "I stopped to take a call," but his call log showed no activity during that time. Suspicion surged before police could act further. An unexpected voice stepped into the story. An Uber driver, a stranger to the case, came forward after reading about it online. He told Aisha's family that on the night of June 12th, he had picked up a young woman matching Aisha's description. The ride began near her apartment and ended near the path leading to the warehouse. The last thing she said before stepping out of the car stopped him cold. "If you don't see me come back in 10 minutes, remember my face." The Uber driver's testimony turned the entire investigation on its head once again. He was verified as a legitimate account holder, and app data confirmed a ride on the night of June 12th, starting at 9:08 p.m., ending at 9:23, dropping off a female passenger just 200 meters from the abandoned warehouse. A nearby street camera recorded the car pulling over at that time. A woman stepped out. Her face was obscured, but her build and clothing matched Aisha's. In a closed-door briefing, Investigator Marks murmured, "She went there of her own will." But after that, nothing. The haunting sentence Aisha reportedly spoke before exiting the car. "If you don't see me come back in 10 minutes, remember my face," echoed across forums, feeds, and comment threads. It felt like a farewell, not one of surrender, but defiance. A woman standing in the heart of power, silence, and fear still trying to leave behind a sign. A trace, a whisper that said, "I was here. I fought," but after that moment, nothing. No cameras captured her leaving the warehouse. No suspicious cars were seen exiting the area. No one heard screams. No struggle. no sound. It was as if the night had swallowed her whole, leaving behind only a backpack, a shoe, an unfinished message, and a single sentence that haunted everyone who heard it. Her family never stopped searching. They held vigils, outdoor memorials, quiet gatherings where each person held a photo of Aisha and stood in silence. Jordan, no longer the overwhelmed young man he was at the start, took the mic, his voice trembling. "My sister didn't disappear. My sister was made to disappear. And until the day I die, I won't let that be forgotten." The case was reclassified as under investigation, missing under suspicious circumstances. Malik remained in custody on unrelated charges, refusing to say more. Devonte Harris, after his first interrogation, abruptly left Georgia, leaving no forwarding address. Kenneth Cole filed for early retirement. One by one, the names in the file vanished from view, as if the truth itself was being buried alongside Aisha. The city moved on. The streets Aisha once helped build still buzzed with traffic, day and night. But near an old entrance to Perkerson Trail, a small handmade sign appeared, nailed into the dirt, simple, weathered, carved by hand. It read, "In memory of the one who spoke when others stayed silent. No name, none needed." Aisha Brown may no longer appear in official reports, but she never disappeared from the minds of those who knew her, even if only through a blurry video, a shared photo, or a social media post. She wasn't famous. She wasn't a movement icon. Her voice didn't echo across national broadcasts. She was a young black woman, working quietly, living humbly, and trying to do the right thing in a world where truth can be the most dangerous thing of all. But Aisha's story, in its own quiet, relentless way, lives on. In the walls she helped build, in the blueprints she stayed up late to fix, in her brother's voice, her mother's eyes, in the bitter silence of a friend who once held back the truth. The name Aisha Brown is no longer just the name of a missing woman. It is a collective memory of those who are overlooked, of those whose disappearances don't make front-page news, who don't get urgent task forces, who are forgotten too easily because of their skin, their status, or their silence. And when we speak her name today, it's not to reopen a wound. It's to remember that justice doesn't always come with flashing lights, arrest warrants, or primetime headlines. Sometimes justice begins when someone simply refuses to forget.